Hello minasan, welcome back to our playthrough of Our Life Beginning and Always. We are continuing where we left off last time. We're going to try to do at least one event from this set from step 2. And obviously, please do leave in the comment section down below what else you would like to see. At the moment, I'm thinking we're going to just do 5 and we're going to end with the road trip for step 2. But I want it to be your choice. I want you guys to tell me, what do you want to see? So, without further ado, though, let us get started. Yeah, we're on this one. I'm trying to figure out what 5 we're on. Let's do dinner for today. Sunlight shone through the windows as you sat in your living room, your home phone pressed to your ear. Cove was on the other end. It'd been shaping up to be an ordinary day, like any other, until Cove had called unexpectedly. He sounded unusually nervous greeting you. You listened silently as he kept talking, his words stilted. So, I was, wondering, do you want to come over to my house for dinner tonight? The question came out strangely, almost as if he'd rehearsed it a few times beforehand. Your eyes widened a little. You hadn't expected this to be the reason behind the call. Yeah, no, I'll go! It was, oh. It seemed that Cove still had more to say, and you just interrupted him. Oops. Cool, well. He stumbled for a bit, trying to gather his thoughts again. My mom and dad, they really want you to be there. If your parents don't have a problem with it, they asked me to ask you. I feel like I changed his voice somehow. I'm sorry. You took a moment to think. Dinner at home would be quiet and uneventful today. You really wanted to. You could go to Cove's instead. Cove spoke up again before breaking your thought train. His voice was softer than before. Also, I want you to be there. Too. Blech. Can you come over, I mean? I'll have to ask my moms to get back to you? Okay, tell me when you can. He sounded noticeably relieved by your response. Was you coming over for dinner today that serious? He spoke to you a little while longer to explain what time to come over and other details, then hung up. And that was that, for now anyway. You called Ma right afterward, and she picked up on the third ring. It wasn't a long conversation. When you asked to go to the Holden house for dinner, she was more than happy to give permission for it. No problem there. Ma wasn't one to complain about you spending time with Cove. Cove got a quick call from you afterwards, so he knew for sure that you would attend the dinner. Then you said your goodbyes and went on with the afternoon. Soon enough, the sun dipped out of the sky and evening came. It was time for you to head to Cove's house. After letting Elizabeth know you were leaving, she didn't look away from the TV, just grunted. You made the small journey across the street. You knocked a couple times on the heavy door of their condo. You waited for an answer. You found yourself contemplating being a guest while both of Cove's parents were there. It was exciting. You're appreciative. Let's go with exciting. I have no clue what you would say. You had thought today was going to be boring, but it turned out to be much more interesting. You didn't get too much time with your thoughts, though. The door opened, and soon enough, Cove's mom, Kyra, stood in the frame, smiling warmly at you.
Come on.
Hiya, Blue! Welcome! Please, come on in! She opened the door wider and moved to make room. You stepped inside, allowing her to shut it behind you. Thanks so much for coming over! I know it was kinda last second. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Of course! Just make yourself at home. It's not my home, but I've been given permission to say that. Hey, Blue, welcome to our humble abode. You jerked your head towards the sound of Mr. Holden's voice. He waved at you briefly from the kitchen with his back turned and a large spoon in hand. Hope you're hungry, 'cause I'm whipping up a lot of tasty stuff. True to his word, you heard something sizzling on the stove. You closed your eyes and inhaled. It smelled spicy and savory. With Mr. Holden busy and Cove nowhere to be seen, it was just you and Kyra. She gave you a wry smile. He sure is. Well, I've been barred from cooking the entire time I'm staying here. Can you believe that? She nudged you with an elbow. Mr. Holden scoffed good-naturedly, then spoke from over his shoulder. You're on vacation, Kyra. You need to accept that already. She yelled back, amusement obvious on her face and in her tone. People still cook when they're on vacation. Everyone's gotta eat. It's not like I'm some celebrity who can go out for every meal or hire a private chef.
Sorry.
Well, in this house, you're a VIP. Kyra smiled and shook her head quietly. Then she turned to face you once more.
Wow.
Sorry about that, Blue. Here I was trying to strike up a conversation with you, and Cliff just had to butt in. I don't butt in. She eyed him, chuckling in disbelief. He wasn't exactly disproving her point with that. Oh, Cliff. Kyra leaned over to whisper to you. It's okay. He likes to be included. But since Clifford insisted on cooking all by himself, he'll have to wait. The two of us can chat. Her next question continued to be said in a hushed tone, just to be safe. So, how are you doing? I'm good. Kyra didn't seem too convinced by your awkward phrasing, but she nodded anyway. Thanks! I was really taken out by the fact that you asked me a question. She opened her mouth to say something more, but some lightly pounding footsteps caught your attention. You checked to see Cove emerge from the hall a few moments later. He might have heard all the commotion and left his room to see what was going on. He quickly took stock of the situation. His cheeks tinted pink at the sight of you standing in his living room, and his hand came up to rub his arm almost bashfully. Look how adorable that boy is! Damn it! Look how adorable that boy is! Is that boy not the most adorable thing you have ever seen in your life? This game just knows how to make adorable boys. Blue, hey, thanks for being here. There was nothing unusual about the words in his greeting, but you could tell something was wrong from the way he looked, like he wanted to be anywhere else but here. Hey, weirdo! Cove frowned at your playful greeting. Weirdo? Yeah, 'cause you're being all weird. He huffed, but he didn't deny it, which meant that he knew he was acting off too. It was when you glanced away from Cove that you spotted his parents watching the two of you interact. Cove noticed their stares too, meeting them with narrowed eyes. Oh, Cove.
So...
Are we having dinner now? Not yet, bud. I'm still cooking. Alright, I'm gonna go back to my room. As he turned to leave, he bent his head to the side to face you. You coming? Of course I'm coming. Why would I continue an awkward conversation with your parents when I don't have to be here? The question was quiet, but you heard it clearly. You smiled, pleased he asked, and nodded in the affirmative. Cove turned fully and made his way down the hall. Have fun, you two! We'll call when the food's ready to go! With that, you followed after Cove. The two of you made your way down the hall. Standard occurrence, I think. I think it should be a standard occurrence. Cove got to the door first, opening it and stepping inside. You joined him. There was a mat on the floor in front of the door. As you stepped over the threshold to his room, you felt the crunch of sand beneath your feet. The sensation was nothing new to you, of course. Cove constantly came back to his room covered in sand, not bothering to clean himself off at the front door, and got it all over his personal space. That was just how he was, a little bit of a mess. You hadn't heard Mr. Holden ever scold him for it, not like your moms would have if you'd done it. You could sit wherever you want. Cove himself took a seat on the edge of his large bed, looking like a picture of comfort, and left you to decide. I'm gonna sit down next to him. As soon as you sat next to him, Cove grew tense. His back went stiff and he ducked his head away. Oh, you poor shy boy! Isn't he just adorable? He tried to hide a trembling smile.
Oh my god.
He's so adorable! He said it under his breath as if he didn't want you to hear. You obviously did, and easily, since you were right beside him. I'm gonna be charmed. He raised his eyebrows. You both kept noticing the other's every move. You're like an open book. You're yes, I can say what I've been saying this entire time. You're adorable. What? It was actually voiced. That's adorable. Clearly, he hadn't expected the compliment. Somehow his flush grew worse, spreading all the way down his neck. He fumbled for words. I'm not, that's... He gripped the blanket underneath him and searched for something more to say. Did you see my fish? I got some in a tank right there. Cove threw both his hands in front of him to direct your eyes towards the pets. He was trying pretty poorly to change the topic, that much was clear. You decided to show him mercy and allowed it. You started to watch the bright fish swim. There were a bunch of them floating to and fro in the open space. They stood out starkly against the green aquarium plants. How long have you had those fish?
I guess.
My dad bought them for me not very long after I moved here. I guess it's been years now. Wow, that's a long time. You peered carefully into the tank. The fish looked to be doing well. He must take good care of them. Most of them were small, but there was one especially big one. What are their names? I don't name them. Well, not really. You lifted an eyebrow at that. He continued the explanations sheepishly.
I mean...
Mostly I just call them things based on what they look like. Squirt for the small one, tangerine for a really orange one, that sort of thing. I had a lot of fish and I'm not that good at coming up with names. Yeah, I'm gonna find that funny. Who knew that was a weakness of his? It was an entertaining revelation. Oh, a couple of them have other types of names. He pointed to a small orangish red fish. It was minding its own business away from the others. My dad named her Dreamcatcher, and that other one's Mark. Mom came up with that one. Cove smiled to himself, his eyes reflecting the glow from the tank. You let other people name your fish? Why haven't I gotten to name a fish, Cove?
It's nice.
Yeah. He then turned to you, tilting his head to the side. There was a considering look on his face. Do you want to name one? Can I? Can I? His smile grew a little at your interest. Darn it. Sure. There's a few that don't have names right now, the newer ones. You can pick which one you want to name. He pointed each of the recent acquisitions to you. The first one was the smallest fish in the tank. It was completely orange and zipped all over the place, running laps around the others. The second was slightly bigger and red. Its tail was dotted with black spots, which almost resembled freckles. The last fish was the biggest one. Its multicolored scales rippled under the bright light of the tank as it slowly made its way across the vast expanse. You went with, let's go with that biggest one. I like that. Cove only nodded at your answer, waiting on you to decide on a suitable name. You watched the fish you chose closely. As you did, a name eventually came to you. Yeah. I'm not gonna name it Blue or Cove, that sounds bad. I don't want to name it Gil. Sunbeam? Sunbeam. Frank? Now let's type in our own answer. Bubble? Let's call it Flare. Alright, it's Flare. With that, his attention moved from you to the tank. He peered fondly at it and its inhabitants. You smiled proudly at Flare as it swam through the tendrils of the plants, disappearing then reappearing soon after. You noticed that Cove was sitting closer to you than he was before. He must have scooted over at some point during the conversation. This close, your shoulders were almost brushing against each other. Your heartbeat picked up a little at the realization. You know, I'm not allowed to have pets in my house, not even fish. The corner of Cove's lips turned down at that. That doesn't sound fair. It's not like fish would make a mess of your house or anything. You just gotta take care of their tank and feed them and they'll be okay. Right, my moms can be strict over the weirdest things sometimes. They trust Elizabeth and me to go around the neighborhood alone, but they won't let us have a pet. It doesn't make sense. Maybe when you're older they'll let you. I don't know, they seem pretty against it. Your current conversation brought to mind a memory from years ago. You launched into it without any warning, earning you a brief, confused look from Cove. One time, Elizabeth, came back from playing at the beach and just shut herself in her room. She only came down for food, and then she ran back upstairs right after. It was kind of weird. My mom didn't think much of it at first. But then that night, Ma went into her room to say goodnight and started screaming. Mom and I ran over to see what happened. Lizzie had brought this huge lizard in her arms. Cove's eyebrows rose at that, and he leaned forward in interest.
Really?
A lizard? Where'd that come from? Elizabeth said she saw it half buried in the sand and didn't know what it was. Then she pulled it out and got the answer, so she brought it home. She hid the lizard in her room for most of the day because she wanted to keep it. Mom and Ma were not happy. They worried about putting it out during the night, but she was gonna have to let it go in the morning. Lizzie was really upset. She did bring it back to the beach eventually, but she wouldn't talk to anyone for days. When she did get over it, it was almost like it never even happened. You laughed, thinking back to that time. Elizabeth had always been stubborn, but when she was younger, she forgot grudges quickly. Now it wasn't so easy. Cove had been quiet for most of the story, apart from the reveal of the lizard. He had a thoughtful look on his face. I can't even imagine what it'd be like to have a sibling. You gave serious thought to his statement before you told him. There are ups and there are downs. It's fun to have her there when she wants to be there, but now Elizabeth barely feels like hanging out with me. Cove pursed his lips at the words, considering them quietly for a while.
Cool.
That's interesting. I think your family is cool. He didn't have much else to say, though while on the topic of your family, you considered your relationship with your moms too. You had disagreements with them, but at the end of the day, you loved them and they loved you. That was what really mattered. Well, say what you want about them, but at least your moms never tried to pay someone to be your friend. Oh! The thought prompted you to look over at Cove. He probably still didn't know that happened. You doubted Mr. Holden mentioned it, and you never had. You wondered if you should tell him. It was a long time ago, but you were keeping a secret from Cove. Oh, you could tell him. I kind of want to take the secret to my grave, guys. Maybe we'll reveal it in, another step, but I'm definitely not doing it here. That sounds like it would ruin dinner. Dinner with his mom and dad, and you just, blurred out that his dad, paid you to be, tried to pay you to be his friend. I didn't take the money, so, that's not even a conversation here. So I'll leave it up to you guys if we do ever tell him, but I'm definitely not doing it here. It was a bad time. You could bring it up some other day when the moment was right. Time passed, but you didn't really notice. The two of you were busy making plans for the rest of the summer and chatting about your respective days. Eventually, you heard a muffled holler from a different part of the house. You and Cove raised your heads in unison.
Oh.
It's time for dinner. Cove watched the firmly shut door he had locked behind for most of the night, but he didn't make a move to get up from the bed. You couldn't see his face, so you didn't know what expression he was wearing. I'm glad you came. Cove peeked back at you from the side. It's been awkward. Really? I couldn't tell. You were being sarcastic, of course. It was obvious he felt weird around his parents generally, especially lately. Cove said nothing and remained sat where he was. Now would be as good a time as any to ask him why his parents so suddenly wanted you to come over. Is there a reason you wanted me to come over tonight? It hasn't been awkward for just me. Sometimes it gets like this when no one else is around, but you're here now. Huh, you hadn't considered that, but it sort of made sense in a way. It was another shout from outside, too muffled to actually know the words, but you could imagine what they were. Let's go. Cove finally got up, lumbering away with his shoulders sagged. You followed after him. Together, the two of you made your way back to the living room. As you expected, Cove's parents were politely waiting for you at the kitchen table besides the window overlooking the back of the house. Food had been prepared and set. Mr. Holden beamed as you and Cove took your places. I hope everyone's hungry. I cooked up a feast.
Yeah.
I know I am. Yeah. Cove's mumbled response wasn't nearly as upbeat as theirs. His parents didn't notice, or they pretended not to. Mr. Holden instead looked at you, grinning.
Thanks.
Let's all just take a moment to thank our special guests for being here with us tonight. I'm so glad you were able to make it, Blue, and on such short notice, too. Thanks for having me over.
All right.
Well, that's it. Everyone, please dig in. You can help yourselves to the food. Upon his encouragement, you looked over the meal spread out in front of you. There was a large garden salad in the center, surrounded by a variety of Mexican dishes. There were a lot of sides and optional sauces to add. I can work with this. Let's not even say that we can work with it. You didn't mind Mexican food. Mom loved it, so you ate it as a family often. In a way, it made your first dinner at the Holden house feel a bit more normal. Utensils and plates scraped and clinked together as the group began filling their plates. Cliff, could you pass the salsa verde? Of course.
Thanks.
Thank you. Let me just say, you really outdid yourself tonight. I'm so jealous. Jealous of what? Your cooking's nothing to sneeze at, Kyra. Co's parents made small talk, filling the silence with what seemed to be barely any effort. You joined right in without a thought. Okay. I didn't know you could cook.
Huh?
You didn't? Who do you think's been feeding me and Cove all this time? I don't know. Maybe you guys get takeout and stuff. You can afford it, I think. That's a very bold assumption. Thank you, Blue. Mr. Holden sputtered, acting grossly offended, but he was grinning good-naturedly. Takeout? If we ate that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, who wouldn't have made it this long? Co's mom leaned towards you, her eyes twinkling merrily. I know it might seem like Cliff is a big goof, but he's got some skills. Hey now, that sounds less like a compliment and more like an insult.
Don't worry about it.
If that's how you want to take it, I can't stop you, can I? Such disrespect, and in my own home. Sorry, my friend. Brief silences intersped the small talk. You piled some food on your plate, waiting for your turn if someone was serving themselves a dish that you had your eye on. Once the food had been divided and things settled, Cove's parents started talking again. Now then. You sat up in your seat when you noticed they were both looking at you.
How's it going?
How's everything been over at your house? Are your moms well? You've been keeping busy this summer, or maybe you're just trying to take it easy during break? I'm literally like with your son 24/7. I'm positive you know everything. You hadn't expected so many questions, and all at once. Still, what else was there to talk about apart from how the summer was going?
Fantastic.
That's wonderful! Mr. Holden's brows raised when you answered with that. You sure are keeping yourself busy. I can learn a thing or two from you. They're great. They're fine. They're the same as always. Work is a little stressful, but they said it's normal grown-up stuff and nothing to worry about. I know all too well I'm sorry. I'm word mumbling. I know all too well what that's like, unfortunately. And that was your question answering. Kyra nodded along. You could tell she was actually listening to the words you were saying. She was trying to include you, not humor you. Did you know, Cliff? Blue is really into writing. Oh my gosh, she's picking up things I told her. Mr. Holden's face lit up and he stopped eating so he could lean forward, his arms braced against the table.
Nice
Oh,
work.
that's right. Very cool. How do we answer this? It's not a big thing. Be bashful. Let's be bashful. Aw, don't downplay your interest like that. Kyra's right. If you enjoy it, then it's definitely a big thing. Thanks. Co's parents were definitely the encouraging type, but you could already tell that much about them. Da-da-dots, da-da-dots, da-da-dots means that there's silence and it's awkward. So I'm singing this song so that we know it's dot-dot-dot. There was a lull in the conversation as everyone focused their attention on their respective plates. You noted not for the first time that Ko's parents were the ones guiding the conversation. You wondered if you should break the silence this time. Dab, 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 dab. Let's go with my own topic. I also like other things. Oh, good job, Blue. Good job. That's how I thought you were gonna break the conversation. Why did you say it like that? God darn it, Blue. Would you like to tell us some more?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They looked genuinely eager for you to keep talking, so you did. The rest of the dinner continued just like that, with light conversation as you ate your meals. Eventually, all the dishes in the kitchen table were pretty much gone. Kyra set down her fork and rested her arms at her side, letting loose a satisfied sigh. Her plate was completely empty.
Thanks.
That was delish! Thank you for your culinary creations, Cliff. Mr. Holden was like a flower soaking up the rays of the sun. He beamed, flattered by the praise. Ugh. You ate way too much. You practically licked your plate clean. You were so full that you were afraid you might burst. Cove successfully kept his presence to a minimum for the full meal. He was slumped over, even now, toying with his silverware. His parents practically only talked to you. Most attempts to entice him to join the conversation failed. Then again, Cove didn't tend to talk a lot unless he happened to be in the mood for it, so you weren't surprised things ended up this way. You didn't get much time to contemplate Cove's situation because your attention was taken by Mr. Holden pointedly clearing his voice. Not to sound like a broken record, but thanks for coming, Blue. I'm glad we finally got a chance to have you over for a real dinner.
What?
What? Did I hear that right? This is the first time Blue has ever had dinner here? Why in the world haven't you invited her over sooner? Cove always is... Bleh? Cove was always the one going over to Blue's house till now. I mean, how was I supposed to reject the generous offers of the Flame family to host my kid? Kyra shook her head, but the amused smile... Bleh, bleh. But the amused smile she was sporting told you she wasn't actually mad. This guy, honestly. The three of you looked at Cove in unison, his small sound bringing more than enough to get focus on him after his silence. By now, he'd stopped fiddling with his fork. Would it be alright for Blue to stay over, like, for the night? Oh, can I please have a sleepover? Can we? Oh, they're not gonna let me do it, are they? He shot you a shy glance, smiling a little. If you're cool with that. Mr. Holden's shoulders stiffened. He sat up straighter, eyes darting back and forth between you and Cove. His mouth opened, but not a peep came out. Look how shocked he is! You never seen Cove's dad say no to him before, but this was different than the usual request. It wasn't so simple, and Mr. Holden was lost. Then Cove's mom reached out and took a hold of his shirt collar. She pulled him closer. She glanced at you before leaning in and bringing a hand up in front of their faces. The two adults whispered seriously to each other. Cove's eyes opened wider. He leaned forward as if that would help him overhear his parents' conversation. Mr. Holden kept gesturing with his hands while Kyra made sure he didn't get too far away with all his movements. Every now and then, both of them would watch you and Cove out of the corner of their eyes. It didn't seem like they were fighting to you. They looked more like some kind of tiny sports team having a private huddle. After a bit, they broke the powwow. They moved back to sit properly in their chairs. You snuck a look at Cove. He stared at them expectantly. You were eager to hear their verdict, too. We, Kyra and I, think that should be fine, but... He lifted a finger dramatically, his brows raising as he met Cove's gaze, and then your own. We'll have to talk with Blue's parents to make sure they'd be comfortable with it. If they are, we can arrange for a sleepover to happen on a different night when everyone is more prepared. If Blue's folks don't like the idea, there's nothing we can do. Well, why can't we just do it tonight if they say yes? Why can't we ask for now? Why do we gotta prepare for a different day? I'm already over here. Just gotta call them. He finished the mini speech with a wide shrug using his full arms. He also checked out Kyra from the corner of his eye and gave her a crooked smile. She nodded approvingly and grinned back. You thought you saw her give him a thumbs up, but her hand was partially blocked by the table. They looked so pleased with themselves over the answer, but they just passed the actual discussion on whether it was all right or not to someone else, namely your parents. If this was a sports game, they would have punted the ball away. Cove hung his head, deflated. He had been hoping you could stay over today, not some hypothetical time in the future. You could always sneak into my room again? Oh, I want one of these two. Am I whispering this to him? Please say that his parents can't hear this. We're gonna do this. Cove's eyes sparkled at the suggestion. You wouldn't be surprised to have him knocking on your window sometime. Though he likely still would without the invite. With that, dinner finally came to an end. Mr. Holden stood up from the table and began collecting empty plates. Cove was asked to help out, which he did with little fuss. Kyra tried to lend a hand as well, however, Mr. Holden didn't let her. It seemed she was barred from cleaning as well as cooking. You weren't allowed to chip in either since you were there as the declared guest of honor. Although the meal was over, the night wasn't. It looked like you weren't going home just yet after all. You were asked to wait on the couch. While Cove and his dad were cleaning up the mess, Kyra disappeared down the hall after shooting you a wink. It was a bit strange sitting by yourself while everyone else had something to do. Luckily, you weren't alone for too long. After a couple minutes, Cove's mom returned with a deck of cards in hand. She strolled into the room confidently while shuffling. So, who's up for a few rounds? Cove and his dad looked over their shoulders at the question. They were mutually intrigued by the cards in her hands. She beamed at their expressions and stepped further into the living room, ignoring the couches. She sat cross-legged on the floor by the coffee table. She turned to you and gestured at the space beside her, smiling invitingly. You accepted and followed her lead. The living room carpet was soft, though the hardwood floor underneath could definitely still be felt. Kyra did the overhand shuffle while she waited for the others to finish their tasks. The smile had yet to leave her lips.
Great.
This is going to be good. I'm gonna enjoy your enthusiasm. Let's go with that. Cove's mom was funny, upbeat, and easygoing. You leaned closer to watch her expertly shuffle the cards. It didn't take much longer for Cove and his dad to wrap things up enough to call it good. Cove's dad appeared first, followed closely by Cove. Mr. Holden rubbed his hands together in anticipation. All right, I'm ready. As he took a seat across from you on the floor, you noticed Cove hadn't joined him. He went straight down the hall and said, without a word, you stared confused as he disappeared through his bedroom door. Cove's parents didn't look concerned at the stunt. Kyra nonchalantly split the deck of cards in two and ruffled the halves together while offering an explanation of sorts. Cove doesn't keep his wallet with him when he's at home. He puts it away. What? What? Are we playing with money? Are we actually gambling? Cove quickly returned to the living room, a black wallet in his hand. He took a place at the foot of the table with the rest of you. You blinked as Cove unzipped his wallet. You guys use real money? Even when you're only playing cards with each other? I'm just as shocked as you, Blue. What the hell? While you sat there, your hands idly in your lap, the three shot looks at one another and sized each other up.
Yeah.
That's right, $5 per round, per person. Winner takes all. Go big or go home. Oh, are you planning on kicking Blue to the curb? Or do you intend to donate to the guest of honor's pot, Mr. High Roller? Mr. Holden narrowed his eyes and leaned back against the side of the couch, completely at ease.
No worries.
If Blue wants to play, I'll fund her way in. Don't you worry about that. He rested an arm across the top of a knee that he propped up. Cove's dad was acting slick in a way you'd never seen before. Thanks, Mr. Holden. His tone and stance instantly became more familiarly friendly when he started directing his words to you. No problem, you can count on me. Blue is my friend. If she's playing, I can give her money for the round. Ah! Mr. Holden wasn't intimidated by Cove's scowl. He only grinned, chuckling.
Good.
All right, bud. I concede your might of personality. Cove still looked a little sour, but he didn't protest much more after getting his way. Well, you've got your ticket. Interested in throwing in? You glanced around. This seemed like serious business. In response to your consideration, Kyra softened her competitive smile. Don't worry too much. We'll probably just do some rounds of goldfish tonight. No biggie.
Do you mind?
What do you think? Sure, let's go. Let's go, boy. Definitely, I want to play. Mr. Holden gave you a big thumbs up while Cove nodded firmly back. You were really good at goldfish. I'm a really good liar. You usually won when you played with your own family, to the point Elizabeth refused to play that game with you anymore. Fantastic! We'll play for however long everyone wants to keep going, or until people start running out of cash, but are still refusing to quit while they're behind. Speaking for yourself, I see. With a laugh, Kyra nudged you using an elbow, then motioned towards the other two with her chin. Don't be fooled by their soft faces. Those boys are sharks. Okay? I don't think Cove is going to be an actual shark, but sure. In reaction to her words, Mr. Holden smirked, and Cove's eyebrows became more angled. Oh, my boy. Wow, this is a long one. I thought this was going to be short, and then it turned into so long. Kyra's phrasing made you think back to when you were young, specifically of Mr. Holden's favorite shark pants that he used to wear all the time. Perhaps they had been a fit for him in ways you didn't know of. You could feel tension in the air. Cove and his parents glued their eyes to one another, then all placed $5 bills in an empty space in front of them. Cove dropped an extra one for you, giving you a tiny smile after he did. Once this was done, Kyra began dealing out cards to everybody. It was time to begin. The first round came and went quickly, with the group getting into the groove of things. You won right away, which meant you had money to keep playing the second round. You're a natural! Nicely done! You better keep those wits about you for the next round, though. As the night went on, so did the games. Mr. Holden would jokingly shake his fist whenever someone other than him got a pair. Kyra acted as a news anchor, reporting on every move everyone made by speaking into her curled fist. Cove was still a few words, but now it was because he was focused on the game instead of being overcome with awkwardness. Most of the time, you even spotted a smile on his lips. You won quite a few games to your delight. You had a hefty money pile on your side of the table. You must regret paying blue. Blah, blah, blah. You must regret playing blue. Pet. Blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry. I'm gonna keep messing up that line. You must regret paying Blue's way in now, huh? I don't know why that line was so difficult. No way. Blue might be beating me, but she's also beating you two. Cove turned towards you and smiled, looking pleased at your ability to match his mom and dad. You smirked and raised your hand for a high five, which he was willing to give you. Sweet. It became clear that where the money went in the moment didn't really matter. They ended up giving it back to one another in other ways, and not just through more rounds of cards. You sat back looking over the scene. A tiny smile grew on your face. Cove's family was pretty cool, you thought. You were glad you got this chance to come over and spend time with the three of them. And voila! There we go! Thank you all so much for joining me as we did another event from Scene 2. Step 2, bleh. Obviously, I do want you guys in the comment section down below to tell me, what do you want to see next? Do you want to see mall, birthday, summer work, escape, family, growing, wave? Whatever you want to see, we're going to do that next. And then, the very last one is obviously going to be road trip. Because I'm saving that for last. We're hopefully going to do at least 2 more if you guys decide on that. And if you guys want all of them, we'll do all of them. It'll just take a while. And we'll be at step 3. It'll take longer to get to step 3. But that's up to you guys. Thank you all so much for joining me. I will catch you all on the flip side. Bye, everyone.